Welcome back to the Ergo2go Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Jeffs, brought to you by the Back School and Ability on Demand. We bring you interesting people from the world of ergonomics, on-site injury prevention, health and safety, and well-being. A whole lot more as well. Don't forget to subscribe below and click on the little bell in the upper right-hand corner to get the latest info in the industry right here on the Ergo2go podcast. We've been speaking with the president of the Mid-South Safety Association. He's also a safety coordinator for the utilities, the pulp mill, and the wood yard for Kapstone Paper's Roanoke Rapids Mill in North Carolina. This is Scottie Jordan. Scottie, welcome back. You ready for segment 2?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you giving us a little bit of history on your career and the history of the Mid-South Safety Association where you and I met. I'd like to get into the present now, and if you could share with us some of the changes you've seen over your years in the paper industry. Again, how many years have you been in it, and what are some of the changes you've seen in safety along the way?
Okay, like I said earlier, I've been in the paper industry for 33 years. Started in 1985, and I can assure you, when I started working in a paper mill, safety was almost non-existent. There was very few, if any, lockout sheets, hot work permits, confined space permits. You didn't have sniffers to sniff a confined space before you went inside. You basically were the sniffer yourself, the person that went in. If you came out, that means the tank or the confined space that you went into was good. And
wow.
Just by the grace of God, there was everybody that started work when I did, we made it out all okay.
That's amazing, because again, you specialize in utilities and recovery, whereas we talked in the last segment about there's dangerous stuff out there. There are things you can breathe that can put you away. Is that safe to say?
Oh, absolutely. We deal a lot with, we come across a lot of hydrogen sulfide, H2S gas. That's
right.
Very prevalent in my area. But it's not just in my area, it's really very prevalent all across a paper mill in general. That's just part of the process of making paper.
Back in the bad old days, if I can say, you kind of detected it when you detected it, which I understand is troublesome, because if I remember my chemistry, H2S gas likes to lay low, so you could breathe above it, right? Is that correct?
That is correct. It likes to lay low to the ground, where you as a person would stand. So it's right there with you. And the thing about it, when you first walk up on the H2S gas, you're going to know what it is, because it's going to have that smell of a rotten eggs.
Right.
But but the longer you stay into that area that has H2S, over time you become desensitized to the smell, and then next thing you know, if you're not careful, and if the amounts get up to very high levels of it, certainly can start attacking your respiratory system, and it could put you into some very troublesome issues very quickly.
So we've seen a lot of change over the course of your career, positive change. It's not perfect yet, but we're forming a more perfect union, to use some vernacular from our historical past. I know in recent years, one of the reasons you've had me speak so many times at the Mid-South Safety Conference is because you're kind of passionate about the aging workforce and ergonomics. You start to see that there's a certain age group in the paper industry. I remember you were saying at one of our conferences there was a big turnover of personnel when you started, and we're coming up on a turnover of personnel. Before we get into the turnover, can you tell us a little bit about why you see ergonomics and the aging workforce as something important to address right now?
Yes, because most of the workforce, I'll just use my mill as an example, most of the workforce in my mill, or a good majority of it, are people who are starting to get up into some age.
Mm-hmm.
So the older you get, certainly the things that you were able to do when you're a younger person, when you start doing those and continue to do the same things that you did when you were younger, as you get older, your body is not going to be as receptive to it, and certainly you're going to start getting into the soft tissue type injuries. And that's what we see a lot of in the paper industry. Not just my mill. I believe it's the paper industry as a whole. There's just a lot of soft tissue injury.
I can appreciate that. What floored me when I first worked, and I worked about, as you know, in about 6 years as the on-site physical therapist at a plant in Florida, that one of the things that floored me was the long careers people put in paper. It's good, honest, solid work. And as such, it's something people stick with for decades. And, like you say, because it's good, honest work, the body starts to catch up. I mean, it happens to all of us. This is something that we talked about in the conference about ergonomics, strains, sprains, aches and pains, as well as, bumps and bruises are about 50% of the non-fatal injuries in all industry. So when we see more and more of that, that's affecting the company's bottom line, but more importantly, it's affecting our workforce and their health and well-being. So we've got to look at changing these things while there's time. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. Again, in my particular area of the mill where I work, we have recovery boiler where there's a lot of rotting that has to take place to clean out the primary air ports, the secondary air ports, the tertiary, the upper tertiary air ports. All these things have to be kept clean in order to run a smooth and efficient boiler, and to be able to do it environmental friendly and just maximize your boiler. And these openings have to be kept clean. And even though we have automatic port routers in some of these airports, no automatic port router is perfect. And a lot of these port openings, you have to go in with a rod steel and go behind the automatic port router and rod it out.
That was one that stands out to me, the rotting out. And we'll see if we can drop a few photos in here on this in post-production so people can see what we're talking about. But it's very challenging being able to rod out those ports in the areas that you're talking about. Scottie, sit still for a second. We're going to go to our third segment in just a moment, but we've got to handle a few things first. So if you'll sit tight, we'll finish up in just a moment. You've been listening and watching the Ergo2go podcast, folks. I'm your host, Matt Jeffs, and we brought this to you through the Back School and Ability on Demand. We bring you interesting people like Scottie from the world of ergonomics, on-site injury prevention, health and safety and well-being, and a whole lot more. Don't forget to subscribe below and click on the little bell in the upper right-hand corner to get the latest info in the industry right here on the Ergo2go podcast. Stay with us. We'll be bringing Scottie back in just a minute. Until then, take care, everybody.